Hello, this is the Provoked Prawn, and these are Lian's SL120 V2 reverse blade fans. So the classic SL120 fan has been updated recently with the V2 version, and now is available with the reverse blade fan. I'm putting it here alongside the standard SL120 V2s, and you probably won't be able to tell the difference, at least when they're spinning. And more on that in a minute, because I want to talk to you about the design differences. But the idea here is that the blades are reversed. What this means is the airflow direction is changed so that you can use these in different positions in your case, so you no longer need to see the back. So with the standard setup, you'll see on the bottom of the case here, you have the intake fan set up down there. And obviously with the traditional SL120 V2 fans, you have the back of the fan facing into the case, which looks pretty ugly. The difference here is with the reverse blade fans, you can then put the front of it facing towards you instead, and that will pull the air into the case. There are some spec changes as well, so I'll leave those in the description. For example, they have an interesting difference in static pressure and noise level, but are designed otherwise very similarly. But what this means is that you can take your build to look from this, for example, in the Dynamic Evo XL to this. So going from seeing the back of the fan to seeing the front. But these are intake fans now on the bottom, and you get that nicer aesthetic throughout your case. Again, you can see it here. So if you have side mounted fans, for example, you can now flip them around the other way with the reverse blade fans, and you just got a nicer look there. So they're pulling in air in. So you've got side mounted intake and bottom mounted intake. So these fans are available in single packs, so you can get a single 120mm fan. I've obviously got 6 of them to demonstrate it in the case there, but otherwise it's the same sort of logic as the standard SL120 V2 fans. They're UNI fans, so if you don't know already, that means that they can be clipped together with the simple clips on the end. You'll see that there are some metal prongs on the connectors between them. You can connect up to 4 fans per group that can then go onto a controller, which I'll show you in a minute. So that means that you can obviously customize it depending on your case. Obviously, I was using 3 fans in this case. If you have a bigger case, you can use 4, or smaller, you could just use 2, as I've done here. And then obviously you then need to connect up a cable. So as standard with the single pack, you have this cable included, which plugs in one end to the fan, and then the other end is RGB and fan power. And this is capable of connecting in different ways to your system depending on what you're doing. But it's worth noting, this is what you get with a single fan. So with each fan, you'll get this cable. So if you bought 6 fans, as we've got here, you'd have 6 of these cables, but you only need 1 per group. So it's worth noting that. So you see the connector plugs in like this really simply, and then you have this nice flush connector, and then you obviously run the cable through your system and connect it up as necessary. Now, at a basic level, it's fairly straightforward in how you'd set this up. So I said fan power and RGB, and also included in the pack, you have this adapter. So this adapter cable plugs onto the RGB cable, and then that transforms it into a 5-volt RGB connection, which you can then plug in on your motherboard. Most modern motherboards have maybe 2 of these connectors on there. And if you do that, you can then sync the RGB lighting with your motherboard software. So in this case, it's a Zeus motherboard, so it'll be Armourer Crate, but there'll be other motherboard softwares out there like MSI Mystic Light and things like that. Make sure you connect it up to the 5-volt RGB header, and then you get RGB syncing and control from there. You then need to plug in the fan power to a chassis fan header or system fan header, and that will give you the fan power. Now, these cables are traditional in their design, in that the very original SL120s had this connector and a control box similar to the one that I'm using here, where you could plug both those cables into the controller instead. Now, this is a pretty old school design that's actually been changed more recently, but you will see it with the Galahad Trinity Infinity cooler. So that's the example that I'm using there. But the more modern ones you'd actually acquire by getting a triple pack of the SL120 V2. So the standard SL120 V2s, if you buy a triple pack, you get this lot of things: 3 fans, the controller, and a load of cables. Now, the controller makes life a lot easier, so I'd highly recommend, if you haven't already, getting a triple pack of these fans. You can buy the controller and an accessories kit separately though, so I'll link to that in the description. But what this means is that you can use that controller and you can swap out the standard 2 cable connection that you'd get with a single fan and use this flat cable instead. So the flat cable plugs in, as I just showed you a minute ago, but now it takes over and gives you both RGB and fan power from one cable. There are 4 connectors on this control box, so you can plug in 4 groups of fans and up to 16 total. So that's 4 fans per group maximum, or 1 fan and 3 fans. You can mix and match. But basically that controller will work with both the standard SL120 V2s and with the reverse blade fans. So if I put the fans side by side, you'll see that it's not obvious the difference between them, but I'll just note it quickly here. If you look carefully, you'll see the blades are facing in a different direction. They have the same number of blades, but they're facing with a different curve, which means that they suck air rather than pulling it, and therefore will work as intake fans when put face up into your case, so as in with the back facing outwards, where usually that would be an exhaust setup. These fans will work with a radiator as well, in case you're wondering, and they have the benefit of 0 RPM mode, so you can go from 0 to 2000 RPM, so you can adjust and go between a variety of speeds. They are noted to be slightly noisier than the original SL120 V2s, but that trade-off means that you get a much nicer looking build. Check out the link in the description as my full wiring guide and more on the original SL120s if you're curious, and don't forget to have a look at the Evo XL as well. You've made it right to the end of the video, you brilliant legend you. If you've enjoyed it, click that subscribe button, give me a thumbs up, and drop me a comment down below if you've got any questions. If you really enjoyed it, consider joining the channel and see the benefits of doing so. Check out these other videos, you might well find them interesting or useful, and most importantly, have a great life.